Morning, everybody. Good to see you. Appreciate you being here. We have visitors with us. We're thankful for your interest in spiritual things and the encouragement that you bring to us. And our hope and prayer is that you'll be encouraged by being here as well. Somebody saved my life. I'd rather be anything but ordinary. Please, I'd rather be anything but ordinary. That's how one modern pop song expresses what seems to be almost a universal longing to rise above the ordinary and do something extraordinary. And you just think about how core this desire seems to be in us. You look at the entertainment industry, and that theme is not just in pop songs, it's in everything. Look at Disney. Disney pumps out movie after movie that taps into that. Where here is some boy or girl that lives in this little mundane place with just an ordinary life, and everything is just so common, and they long for some adventure, for something extraordinary. Think of Belle and Beauty of the Beast singing that there must be something more than this provincial life. In other words, this can't be all this. This little town with the baker just cooking bread every day and everybody talking about the happenstance of what's going on. There's got to be more than this in life. And so we tend to have that desire to be extraordinary in some way, accomplish something that ordinary people don't accomplish. The problem is that most of us are ordinary people living ordinary lives. And Abe Lincoln was once criticized for being too common looking to be a president. And he replied and he said, "The Lord prefers common looking people. That's why He made so many of us." And it does seem like the Lord prefers common, ordinary looking people with common, ordinary looking lives. When God selected a person to deliver His people out of Egyptian bondage, He went out into the Sinai wilderness and He found a sheep herder, and He said to him, "I will send you to Pharaoh that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." And this was pretty startling to Moses. He ponders this curious choice and he said, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" And that's a good question. Because at the heart of that question is, can ordinary, common people really be that useful in something that the Lord is doing? Something extraordinary that the Lord is doing. And so I want us to just think about that just a little bit for a few minutes this morning. It's interesting that God did not choose Moses when he was prince in Egypt. He waited until he was a common shepherd. And that's when He used him to bring His people out of bondage and used him to be His lawgiver. Amos was criticized for trying to be somebody important. And Amos just replied in Amos chapter 7, verse 14 and 15. He said, "I was no prophet, nor was I the son of a prophet, but I was a sheep breeder and a tender of sycamore fruit. Then the Lord took me from following the flock. And the Lord said to me, go prophesy to my people Israel." Elijah was a farmer. And Elisha, I had it right the first time. Elisha was a farmer, but God used him to influence everybody from widows to important kings in Israel. And so, historically, God's used a lot of common, ordinary people to do pretty extraordinary things. And you think about even when God Himself came down to live as a man, He came and He lived among common people. And He worked beside common people. And God selected that His Son would be born in a stable of all places, that His birth would be announced by shepherds, that He would be raised by pretty common, ordinary parents, that He would grow up in a rather insignificant town in an unimpressive area in a time when His nation was not even that important in world history, it didn't seem. He grew up having a blue-collar profession. He was a carpenter. Isaiah would prophesy of this, and Isaiah would say, "You would never believe it. You would just never guess this." Verse 1 of Isaiah 53, who has believed our report? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For he, talking about the Messiah, the Christ, he will grow up before him, before God, as a tender plant, as a root out of dry ground. Now, that may be lost on us unless we think about that for just a little bit. A tender plant. Where would a tender plant grow up and thrive? In the middle of the Utah salt flats? No, you would never expect to see it there. Well, that's exactly the point that Isaiah is making. What we're seeing when we look at God coming to live in the flesh, we would never expect that He would come to be just an ordinary looking man. That He would blend in. In other words, there was nothing about Him that was extraordinary to see. He would go on to say, He has no form or comeliness. And when we see Him, there's no beauty that we should desire Him. In other words, you didn't look at Jesus and say, whoa, now there's a guy, there's a man, there's a leader. He just looked like a man. And He lived like a man in that. And when Jesus chose men who would lay the foundation for His church, He chose men from common ranks, fishermen, a tax collector. I don't know any of the 12 apostles who we would look at and say, now there was one that was extraordinary. They all seem to be pretty much ordinary folks. It's the common, ordinary people that God most often uses for making an extraordinary difference in the world. And you just look through the Scripture, there were very few people who really were standouts before the Lord called them and used them. They were pretty ordinary in that. Now, what makes common men well suited to be used in extraordinary missions are their willingness to be used. That's the key. It's not that it's just something that, well, just anybody can be used. Well, no, any common person can be used if they're willing to be. If they're willing to devote themselves to the Lord. And that's what we see in those individuals. And the same is true for us today. We don't have to come from powerful, influential families to be useful in God's kingdom. We don't have to be successful business leaders. We don't have to be millionaires. We don't have to be famous. We don't even have to be particularly intelligent or gifted in some way. But we do have to be willing to be devoted. Jesus would talk about the fact that unless you are willing to take up your cross and follow Him, you cannot be His disciple. That's a prerequisite. If you're going to be called into this extraordinary mission of working for the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, you have to be willing to follow Him and be devoted to Him, wholeheartedly devoted to Him. And then He can use you for extraordinary things. This willingness to serve the Lord and to be useful in His purpose is where we really become transformed from being ordinary to extraordinary. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 15 and 16. But as He who called you is holy, you also be holy in all of your conduct, because it's written, be holy, for I'm holy. You know what the word holy means? It means not common, not ordinary. It's something that's set aside as special. It's something that's different from the usual. Our God is holy. He's not ordinary. He's not common. You be holy as He is holy. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9 and 10, Peter says this, you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, His own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His marvelous light, who were once not a people, but now are the people of God. Wow. What Peter's trying to get across to us is you're not ordinary anymore. You have been called to be the people of God. You are a holy nation, a royal priesthood, a chosen generation, a special people for a special purpose and a special calling, an extraordinary purpose and call. Therefore, live like it. God has made us His own special people. He brought us out of the world of darkness and sin. And He translated us into the kingdom of His Son. And He gave us the mission of proclaiming His praises. We must remember where we stand. In our ordinary town, with our ordinary jobs, we have an extraordinary calling. And that we must remember. Well, what does that look like? Let's think about that just for a little bit, because I think maybe this is where we get lost, because we look in the mirror and what we see is the ordinary. And we just kind of, that other sounds good, and it makes for a good topic like this, but what does that really mean in our life? How can we be extraordinary? Well, we can do what God calls all Christians to do. And that is, we can love the Lord our God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, and with all of our mind. That type of devotion is not ordinary. That type of commitment and totally giving yourself to something is not common. That's what we can do. We can love our neighbor as ourselves. That's not ordinary or common. That type of consideration for others is not typical. We can love our enemy. That's not common. We can bless those who curse us, do good to those who hate us, and pray for those who spitefully use us and persecute us. That's extraordinary. People just don't do that. But God's people do. You can do that. You can worship faithfully. You know, it doesn't take any particularly special talent to be able to worship God faithfully. You don't have to be athletic to worship God faithfully. You don't have to be famous to worship God faithfully. You don't even have to sing well to worship God faithfully. You just have to be devoted to Him. And you do have to pour out your heart to Him. And if that's with a voice that doesn't always have the right pitch, that's okay. You can do what God says to do. You can worship Him faithfully. And what happens when we do that is common, ordinary people gain access before the throne of the Almighty God, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. That's not ordinary. How can we get access to come before the great I Am? But it's offered to us. We can do that. We can study and pray regularly. That requires a little time and a little thoughtfulness, but we don't have to be a scholar to be able to do that. We don't have to be eloquent to be able to do that. Just talking with someone a while back about J.C. Grissom, who, for those of you who don't know him, was a member here for a number of years. Not particularly educated. I think he had like a first or second grade education. His wife Betty would read to him the Bible until he got audio cassettes, and then he would listen to the Bible on that. You don't have to be particularly educated to study, to pray. Your prayers don't have to be grand in vocabulary, but they have to be heartfelt. And in study and prayer, we gain access to wisdom that the wisest of the world don't have access to. Psalm 119, verse 97, starts off where David says, or the psalmist says, "Oh, how I love your law." Why? It makes me wiser than my enemies. I understand more than the ancients. All of the wisdom of God that's been revealed is accessible to a common, ordinary person who's willing to study. And to the person who's willing to go and pray, the help of the most powerful force there is accessible. That's extraordinary. You can live a pure life, no real talent, required for that. No wealth that you have to have in order to be able to do that. And in doing so, you're transformed into a light to help the lost and dying world find salvation. That's extraordinary. That's extraordinary. You can be kind, you can be thoughtful, you can be helpful. That doesn't require a lot of extraordinary talent, but it has the power to change a person's mood, day, and potentially their life. You can do those things. Do what you have unique abilities to do. Do what every Christian should do, but do also what you have unique abilities to do. I'm thinking of Romans chapter 12, verse 4 through 8, where it says, "For as we have many members in one body, but all the members do not have the same function, so we, being many, are one body in Christ, and individually members of one another. Having then gifts differing according to the grace given to each of us, let us use them." That's the key phrase. Let us use them. If prophecy, let us prophesy in proportion with our faith. Well, I haven't been given any prophecy. I'm not a prophet. Okay. Or ministry, service, let us use it in ministering. Well, I can probably serve in some way. Well, then do it. He who teaches in teaching. Oh, I'm not a teacher. Okay. He who exhorts in exhortation. You can probably strengthen somebody and encourage somebody in whatever sphere of influence you have. Do it. He who gives with liberality. Well, I don't have a lot of money. You have something. Give what you can with liberality. He who leads. I'm not a leader. Well, if you are, do it with diligence. But then look at this last one. He who shows mercy with cheerfulness. I don't know of anybody who can't show mercy and can't do it cheerfully. Whatever it is that you have opportunity to do, do it. Do it for the Lord. Edward Everett Hale said this, "I'm only one, but I'm still one. I cannot do everything, but I still can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do something that I can do." And that's exactly the attitude that we must have. I may not be able to do this for the Lord or that for the Lord, but what I can do for the Lord, I must do. I must do. Number 3, take some initiative. Take the initiative to use the opportunity set before you. Joseph of Arimathea had an empty tomb, and he saw a need. And so he took the initiative to ask for the body of Jesus. Now, if you think about what was involved in that, that was an incredible risk. He seems to have been a man of prominence that was well respected and well thought of. All of that was in jeopardy when you ask for the body to show respect for a criminal that has just been executed. Not only that, the reason this criminal was executed is because he was hated by the majority, which now is going to lump Joseph of Arimathea in with him. But he took the initiative to say, well, here's what I can do. And it's my time to step up and do it. And he did it. Priscilla and Aquila heard a man passionately talking about spiritual things. He was wrong about a few things. And so they took the initiative to take him aside and to explain to him the way more accurately. I don't suspect that they were probably as well studied as Apollos was. Apollos was known for being eloquent and mighty in the Scriptures. That's not said of Aquila and Priscilla. But they showed the initiative to say, well, now here's an opportunity. Here's someone that's obviously very interested in spiritual things, zealous about spiritual things, but is missing some key information. We have that key information. It's our turn to step up and to share that. And they did so. And I would say there was a risk in that, but they showed the initiative to do it. And what I see in the Scripture is from what we would think of as some of the greatest monumental actions taken to some of the smallest action taken, such as showing the initiative to give a cup of water in the name of the Lord. Jesus says, well, by no means lose their reward. That's significant to the Lord. And we look at it and say, well, that's right, anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. But so often God's people fail to show the initiative even to do things like that. So show the initiative. Take some initiative. Let me tell you about an extraordinary man. His name is Tom Troll. He's from the small rural town of Maybank, Texas. He's of average build with average looks. I would say he's of average intelligence. He's got a decent sense of humor, but nothing special. When I knew him, he worked a vending route filling snack machines. He's since moved on to teach ag at his hometown high school. Tom's extraordinary because he taught me the truth. Tom is an average, common man that Christ used to save my soul and to change my life. Most Christians are brought to the Lord by common people. It may be your boring parents who spent the time to teach you about the Lord, to train you up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Maybe it's an average ball player who takes the opportunity to talk to his teammates about the Scriptures. Maybe it's just a minimum wage employee that takes the initiative to invite his boss to church. It's just common people who get the privilege to participate in the extraordinary work of Christ in saving souls. That seems to be the way the Lord works. And that's our calling. That's our calling. We take up our cross and we follow our Master who came to seek and save the lost. And in that, we get to participate in the most extraordinary rescue mission that has ever taken place. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, 26 through 31 says this, "For you see your calling, brethren, that not many wise according to the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. But God has chosen the foolish things of the world to put to shame the wise. And God has chosen the weak things of the world to put to shame the chosen. The things that are mighty. And the base things of the world and the things which are despised, God has chosen. And the things which are not, to bring to nothing the things that are, that no flesh should glory in His presence, but of Him you are in Christ Jesus, whom became for us the wisdom from God and righteousness and sanctification and redemption, that as it is written, he who glories, let him glory in the Lord." What's Paul's point here? Well, this is in the context of people elevating different Christians and saying, "Oh boy, now Apollos, he is so eloquent, he's something. Oh, Paul, he's something." No, these are common, ordinary men that have extraordinary parts in God's plan because they were willing to submit to following their Lord. They can't glory in that. We can't glory in that except in Christ. In Christ, we have the privilege to participate in that which is extraordinary. So let us not forget, in Christ, we do have an extraordinary calling. A calling to participate, as I said, in the greatest rescue mission ever, in saving and seeking and saving souls. A calling of proclaiming the glory of the Almighty, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. We're not common people. We are a peculiar people. We are God's people. We must live as God's people. Isn't it ironic that within us is a longing to be extraordinary? And God gives us the opportunity to be extraordinary. Not by being famous or wealthy or politically powerful, but by being faithful to Him and being useful in His cause. We forget that sometimes. I forget that sometimes. And so let this be a reminder. This week, let's go out and do the work that the Lord has given us to do. In our ordinary town, in our ordinary jobs, with our ordinary abilities. Let's be lights that glorify the extraordinary God that we serve. Thank you for your attention this morning. We want to give a moment to think about how devoted we are to the Lord, how faithful we are to Him, maybe things that we need to correct, shape, change, to be more what He would intend for us to be. We're surrounded together this morning to stir up love and good works, to help each other in that. So we offer an opportunity that if you need the support and help of this congregation to better yourself spiritually, to be more what you need to be, let that be known. If we can help you in knowing what God's Word says and practicing what God's Word says and praying for you to overcome some struggle or temptation or obstacle that you're facing, whatever it is, if we can be a benefit to you spiritually, we want to be. So we're going to sing this song, and if you have a spiritual need that we can help with, we encourage you to come while we stand, while we sing. Thanks for watching. If you found this video to be beneficial, please follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to share it with others that you feel like may benefit from it. If you need to contact us, please contact us via email at quinn.church@yahoo.com. Also, if you're in the area, we would love for you to come visit with us at one of our assemblies. Have a good day.